Our next speaker is Mailde Ozório. She's a PhD student at IQSC at our house.
Good morning, everyone. I am glad to talk with you today about inorganic and hybrid perovskite, the work that we are doing in the perovskite team that's composed by Professor Juarez, the Professor Matheus Paes Lima from UFSCar, the postdoc Siricat Mailde and Julia Silveira, me, and the scientific student Mariana Galego. First of all, I will give a short summary about what means perovskite and how it's important to study this kind of material. The first perovskite-based solar cell was synthesized in 2009 by the Kojima group and reached a small efficiency in that time, almost 4%. But until that time, from that time until now, the efficiency of the cell has increased fast. Today, reach a mark of 25%. We put this kind of material in as a promising material for the future of solar cell. Basically, due to the what I mentioned, the high power conversion efficient and the higher absorption coefficient that allows this kind of material harvest the solar energy in a wide range of the range of energy spectrum. And another good point is the low cost. However, this higher number of features, there are some main problems to be solved. One of these problems is the lead toxicity, because until now the most efficient perovskite-based solar cells are based on lead. That, from an environmental viewpoint, is a bad aspect. Another negative point is the stability. This kind of material don't have a long lifetime. And to replace the lead to find optimal band gap. In this sense, to add to the search of better alternatives for solar cells based on perovskite, here in the group are studying inorganic perovskites, as well hybrid organic and organic perovskite, with higher dimensionality of the inorganic framework, as well lower dimensionality, such as one-dimensional and zero-dimensional, and paying attention to the role of organic cation in the optoelectronic properties. First of all, I will summarize some studies in organic perovskite. For example, the work of the Professor Matheus Paes Lima from UFSCar. He's studying the cesium germanium chlorine perovskite within different polymorphs. Some of them the tetragonal, the cubic, and the distorted cubic, as well the supercubic, that are perovskite-based solar cells that have a 3D connection of inorganic framework. And he also studying lower dimensional structures, hexagonal structures, like the 1,8 and 4,8. Some results that he emphasized for me is the fact that perovskite-like structures have degenerated energies, but have some disparity in the band gap. But the band gap of these structures are in the range of 1 electrovolt to 3 electrovolts. That covers, in the sense, the optimum band gap that is estimated for the solar cells application. We have also the work of a scientific student, Mariana Galego. She are studying doing a screening of the physical and chemical properties of cubic perovskite using 3 kinds of monovalent cation for A site, 3 kinds of divalent cations for big site, and also for anion site, 3 kinds of halide elements like chlorine, bromine, and iodide. The replacement, fixing, for example, the A cation, and we are a replacement of germanium until the lead, and you have an increase of the volume of unit cell due to increase of the ionic rate of this element. As well, the same behavior is observed when you we exchange the chlorine to bromine and after to iodide. This kind of replacement tends to increase the volume of unit cell. As well, however, when you increase the halogen elements, you are doing upshifting the valence band minimum due to increase of occupied states. If you have want more information about the work of Matheus Paes Lima and also of the work of Mariana Galego, you can go to the poster section, speak with them. Now I will speak you about an interesting result about the postdoc Sirikant Mailde. He's working with hybrid perovskite and also a kind of inorganic perovskite that has the cesium as the A site. In this study, he are investigated some orientation different polymorphs like the pseudocubic, the orthorhombic, as well lower dimensional structure like the hexagonal, and the orthorhombic with one-dimensional connective or inorganic framework. Some results is the decrease of the lead iodide bond length when you go to the lower dimensional to higher dimensional dimensionality of the inorganic framework. As well, Sirikant found an interesting correlation between the relative total energy and the volume of each cell. As their energy decrease, the volume tends to follow the same trend. Also, I think it's interesting results that you can ask for Sirikant in the poster section. Now, I will emphasize the work of the postdoc Julian Silveira. He is working with an interesting material that's a double lead-free perovskite. In the sense, he fixed the cesium as the A cation, and for B and B line, he used also fixed the cations that is platinum and bismuth, but he placed the chlorine from bromine and after to iodide, and he observed the decrease of stability as well the decrease of the band gap. However, he had a good idea to mix these halogen sites in order to observe if have a good performance of the stability and also of the band gap. In this sense, in fact, he observed that, and as you can see above the dotted line, there are the majority of mixed structures are below the dotted line, and you ask you for rotation for the yellow spheres that are more stable and also are in the range for optical in the range for ideal optimal band gap. You can also look for Julian in the poster section. He has more details about these finds. Now I will summarize for you some results from my PhD course. I am investigating basically three organic cations, the role of orientation of three organic cations in four different polymorphs: the cubic, orthorhombic, tetragonal, as well the hexagonal structures. I found that for the case here, I'm showing for you the case of methylamonium iodide, the orientation of the organic cation plays a big role, as well the dipole moment. As you can see, fixing as a reference the cubic structure. If you look for the orthorhombic tetragonal, you observe that this structure have a higher energetic stability. in comparison to the cubic. Some reason for that is then in the case of orthohomik tetragonal, you have almost null or completely null cancellation of the dipole moment. In the case of hexagonal, you have not the complete null cancellation of dipole moment, but have an effect of dimensionality. Due to lower dimensionality, the organic cation tends to orientate in direction to the layers of the inorganic layers. Another thing that must be emphasized here is that the hydrogen bonds tends to play a big role in the distortions of the octahedral. And also, as we increase the organic cation, we tend to increase of the volume of the cell. But if you, in overall aspect, when you look to the tendency of the lowest energy, you can see that for the majority of the perovskites, for the different cases of organic cation, you tend to have the cubic structure as the lowest energy, and the tetragonal in the orthohomik as the cubic structure as highest energy, and the tetragonal in the orthohomik as the lowest energy. But the volume don't follows the same tendency, but because for the case the curve is for the lowest energy, because the volume of unit cell tends to be a balance between the strain and the Coulombic attractions in the systems. For analyze the stability of the perovskites, the better way is not to look at the relative energy, but the enthalpy of formation. In this sense, we can observe that the orthohomik structures is the most stable for all cases. That follows for tetragonal, in some cases, or pseudo-hexagonal. But I will highlight for you that for methylamine from formamidine, you have some experimental observations. And when you increase the temperature, the structure tends to go from orthohomik and after to the tetragonal and after to the cubic. Thus, in this sense, these results show the same tendency for these structures. As I showed you before, the organic cation plays a big role in the structural as well in the energetic properties. But when you look for the electronic properties, you cannot see the same effect. In fact, indeed, when you look at the cubic and tetragonal structures that have a 3D connection of inorganic framework, you have the same trend for the absorption coefficient, the same trends that have a small fundamental band gap and a big contribution of the inorganic states for the substates. However, non-perovskite structures have a shift from the visible range to ultraviolet range, and also an increase in the band gap that now is an indirect band gap. However, we'll also observe that here the organic cation do not play a big role because the dense substate is composed mainly by the inorganic states. As a conclusion, I found that energetic and structural properties is important in aspect when you consider the organic cation, but the cation don't have a big role in the electronic properties. Hydrogen bonds have leads to significant distortion in the octahedral, in the bond lengths of octahedral. When you increase the cation, the size of cation tends to increase also the volume of unit cell. And when you decrease the dimensionality from 3D, three-dimensional connectivity from lower dimensional connectivity, as in the case of hexagonal structures, you have the shift from the absorption coefficient from the visible to ultraviolet range. Thus, perovskite structure, it's a good structure for solar cells because they can have a harvest of solar energy in a wide range that is interesting for solar cells. And also, the optical band gap is wider for the optical gap, the fundamental gap, which indicates the possibility of occurrence of forbidden transitions in these systems. I will ask you for getting more information in the poster section with Siri Canto-Malai, Julian Silveira, and also with Mariana Galego. Thank you for your attention.
Questions?
Help make a question, okay? When you showed your result for some of the perovskites, for example, the rule of these cations, you did not talk about the dipole, the rule of the dipole orientation. Is this important, or in that case of materials? Because of those molecules has a permanent dipole, like methyl ammonia or methyl phosphonia.
For the dipole moment is important. For example, in the cubic structure, you have not cancellation of dipole moment, but in the case of orthohombic tetragonal structure, you have the cancellation, and as a consequence, you have a higher stability for this case. But I will say for you that the dipole moment is not so have the same importance for all kind of cation. For example, when you consider the methyl ammonia, you have a big electronegative difference between the carbon and nitrogen. But when you replace the nitrogen by phosphorus, you decrease this electronegative difference, and as a consequence, you decrease the dipole moment. And you have not the same impact of dipole moment for all cases.
In the optical properties, you show that one structures provide a shift in the absorption spectra. And I want to know if that shift is attributed to the structural properties of the materials, or maybe have another contributions. What do you?
Here, in the perovskite like structure, we have a 3D connection of an organic framework. The response for, answer for the occasion, I think, is the connectivity of the inorganic framework. Here, in these two cases, the cubic tetragonal, you have higher dimensionality. But in the hexagonal, you have just 2 layers of inorganic framework that have, as you can see by the density state, have a big role in the electronic properties. When you decrease the dimensionality, you decrease the range of absorption of this material.
And that is better than, for example, compared with the other structures, is better, or?
No, for all cases, here I put, do the time, I put the case of methyl ammonium, but I do the same analysis for methyl ammonium, methyl phosphonium, and for mamidinium. For all cases, the perovskite-like structures have a wider range of absorption than the hexagonal. All hexagonal structures for methyl ammonium, methyl phosphonium, and for mamidinium have a high absorption in the ultraviolet range.
Thank you.
Do we have more questions? Seems that's not the case, so let's thank the speaker again.